Dun, 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 dun. Two for three today. Me and Chris are here to talk about the new information or the new announcement, rather, of an Iron Man video game.
So I guess let's get this out in the open. I shared a tweet from the great Wario 64 earlier today that there was an Iron Man game in development. I think Iron Man's awesome, and I have been asking, begging for someone to make an Iron Man game. Because the one that we got for Xbox 360 and PS3 all those years ago, we didn't want it to be based on a movie. We just wanted a fun Iron Man game. And there's a game in development, but unfortunately, as I looked up an article for more information on this, it's being developed by EA. So, Anthony, what are your immediate thoughts on the game announcement and the developer behind it?
Well, it's going to be a mostly linear experience, right?
It's like all the basic stuff, single player, third person action, original story, so at least it won't fucking be based on a movie or anything. Yeah, and they just said like it's gonna make you feel like Iron Man, which that's what we want. We want to feel like Batman, but we can fly in a suit of metal. So
Well, we had the Iron Man VR game that came out on PS4,
yeah, which is like
and
apparently part of the Spider-Man universe, like technically. It's kind of weird, but whatever.
huh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't quite understand why, aside from them both being on PlayStation, but yeah, apparently that Iron Man is the one that exists in the Spider-Man PS4 universe as well. So yeah.
Interesting. I just hope that it. Well, let's say this. Not every Marvel game is going to be Insomniac.
No, they got a lot on their plate,
Guardians,
man. They got a lot on
Guardians of
their
the
plate.
Galaxy was Square Enix and it was great.
Yeah.
Um, we're not going to talk about Avengers. Um,
Never
so
heard of it. Never heard of that one.
this could be a good thing or a bad thing. A good thing because we don't want Insomniac to be overwhelmed with what they're doing. Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine, which Wolverine probably was not even. They probably haven't started Wolverine yet, as far as we know.
Very early
Yeah.
development, I would assume. Yeah.
So yes, we can see more of these characters getting their games, but I don't think EA should be doing it because even with Jedi Fallen Order, that was Respawn who did it,
Yes.
and EA was like, "We're gonna let you do whatever you want. We're not gonna touch it." So EA needs to, whatever companies are working for EA to make games, EA just has to have the role of we're going to back you up financially, whereas those companies making the game is having a MC Hammer approach. You cannot touch this. We're going to handle this. Like,
So before you continue, I should reveal one piece of very interesting news in an article about this game that may or may not alter how you feel about its production. The motive team working on the project will be led by Oliver Proulx, hope I'm saying that correctly, Proulx, who was the senior producer on last year's Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. He also worked on the single player side of Marvel Avengers, which people have said the single player is actually pretty good. Like the story is decent and it's fun. So, and we both love Guardians of the Galaxy. That game was awesome. This guy's leading the Iron Man project. Does that impact your level of interest?
only slightly because there's going to be the question of how much is EA going to interfere. Um, if they don't interfere too much, then great. That'll be awesome. But if EA says, "Hey, we're gonna, you know, interfere with this and that," and it's kind of like, well, you're not letting the guy run with his creativity. Um, it's like this thing, this like mindset I have where, let's say you want to create something, but you are also going to other people for like some resources, and they say, "Well, we want to do things this way." But it's your vision. You see it how you think is going to be great. So you want your vision to be created. So I would hope that there won't be much interference with EA. I hope that this guy can continue what he's been doing so far. And we get a great story. You know, Iron Man is gonna have some jokes. Hopefully not too much quippy like Spider-Man. You know, Iron Man does have some
Yeah.
jokes here and there. Um, can we at least get if Happy's gonna be in the game? Can we just get Jon Favreau to do a cameo?
Yeah, you know it's funny? I wonder if I wonder if they can do that because I don't know how the video game universes and the movie universes, if there is supposed to be any connection, then in theory, I guess they'd have to have someone else play Happy, because then it
Yeah.
would be, but then it depends if maybe this would be part of the MC. I don't know. I don't know. I actually think now that I am aware that this guy is involved, and I go back to Jedi Fallen Order all the time because I think that was such a great example of EA finally learning to back the fuck off of these single player developers and let them fucking work their magic because they know what they're doing. Um, I think if you got this guy heading the project and Guardians of the Galaxy was a game that pretty much everybody that saw the early like gameplay and trailers wrote it off immediately. That it
Yeah.
was like, going to be a wash. It was going to be like Avengers, LOL, like no one's going to buy it. And that part is unfortunately true. Like Marvel Avengers was so bad that people didn't buy Guardians of the Galaxy because it looked like it was going to be the same.
Yeah.
And then, I finally gave it a shot and then I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. And then you finally gave it a shot. And we were like pretty surprised that it was, I mean, arguably one of the most underrated games of the last couple of years. I
Same
think
thing with the
that,
first movie. Like the first movie, a lot of people were shitting on it, and then they saw it and they're like, "Oh my God, it's one of the best MCU
yeah.
movies."
Well, I think like Guardians of the Galaxy didn't even, it's like a super recent creation. So the idea of like them getting their own movie and video game still, I guess, seemed like there were a lot of people that doubted, which is okay to doubt after Marvel Avengers because that was just such a disappointment in so many ways. I do think though you're not gonna bring this guy in if you plan on micromanaging the whole project and trying to stuff it full of ways to get people to spend extra money.
Right.
Because Guardians of the Galaxy didn't have any of that shit. Like, I think a really good example is what Ubisoft does, which is like they still make single player games, but those games are stuffed with microtransaction. If you go onto the like any Assassin's Creed DLC store, it's like buy credits for this, buy like credit pack for that, upgrade your level 50 levels or like so many different ways to try to get people. And then like they purposely make the games extra grindy so that you either get annoyed and you like spend the money or you just stop playing like I did. I think that based on Jedi Fallen Order, which didn't really have that, and Guardians of the Galaxy, which literally had I don't like no DLC unless you wanted to like buy the soundtrack. Like I feel like they're gonna let this guy work his magic. Like they're gonna let this team just do their thing. Cause I mean, okay, you know what's really exciting? And I can't believe I'm I can't believe I'm about to bring up a game that like completely failed miserably. It could be argued that this is an advantage that EA also developed Anthem, or that they published Anthem. They didn't develop it. It's BioWare
Because of
because
the flight controls.
those flight controls. Like if any company was going to take on this project that already had some sort of assets or experience people like with that side of it, because what's the one thing you need in an Iron Man game? It's like he's got to play right. He's got to
Right.
play like Iron Man should play. You should feel like you're flying around in this like borderline invincible suit of armor. And it's crazy that there's any connection between Anthem and a potentially good game. But I've heard this for a while of people being like, if any company was going to try an Iron Man game, it should be EA because the Anthem flight controls were great. And like,
That was like the only thing great about the game is
right, but that's all you need.
yeah,
Like, you
that's
just
all you
need that
need.
one great thing, and then you let this guy work his magic, whatever original story. Like, I thought the Guardians of the Galaxy story was awesome. I saw like gameplay of the Avengers story. It looked fun enough. And then like they had like DLC with Black Panther and whatnot, and they all, he had his own story. I think there's a lot of potential. It's exciting. I don't know how far off this game is. They didn't give any sort of release window. They basically just announced that they're working on it. So,
So let me ask you
5 years
this.
maybe.
What is some hopes of, depending on your knowledge of the whole Iron Man thing, like what enemies do you hope to see in this game?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not super up on like all of Iron Man's villains because even when like Marvel did their first movie with him in '08, he was kind of an obscure character to pick to start off the MCU. And then looking back, I was like, oh my God, that was a great choice. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess they could, bring in characters we've already seen, like the Mandarin or what was that guy, Whiplash, Mickey Rourke? Is that who he played
Yeah,
in Iron Man 2? Um, Iron Patriot. I
because
mean, like there's like options like that. I don't know enough about what his other options are, but as someone who's just a fan of like Iron Man, because I just think he's a really cool character, I'm excited to learn. Like, I mean, it's sometimes it's kind of fun coming at it from like a more casual perspective because it's like I don't really know that many of his villains, but I'd love it if this game taught me more about Iron Man because I think he's
yeah,
really
because even
cool.
with Guardians, I had no idea who Lady Hellbender was, and that was an interesting character. And then I knew of Fin Fang Foom, but I thought he was a Hulk villain. Maybe he is
Mm,
just a Marvel villain, but I know in the Iron Man VR, I think the villain they chose was the one from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Um, so I don't know if that's like if it was a weird choice or if that is related to Iron Man, but I would at least like to see like I don't want it to be too much like Spider-Man where I mean yes I want to see alternate armors, but I don't want it to be too much like Spider-Man where it's just oh we have the same thing they got, all these armors you can get and all these collectibles and um but I would like to at least see a decent roster of enemies that you can fight or rather villains in the game. Um the Mandarin might be a powerhouse of like, not this game but next game type of thing.
yeah.
But definitely it has to have either Mandarin or Ultron. I think Ultron is more so of a later on, not gonna happen anytime soon thing.
That would
But
be pretty cool. I don't know how they would. I mean, I haven't obviously, in case it's not like I haven't read Iron Man comic books. I just think he's a cool character. Yeah, I don't know. Do you think Ultron's like too big of a one person villain?
definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like Darkseid. Like, yeah, Darkseid is a Superman villain, but you wouldn't
Right.
really put Darkseid in a Superman game because, well,
Even
hmm,
Superman needs help to take down Darkseid.
yeah.
Like,
Or even like Doomsday might be too big of it, but Doomsday is also more boring in terms of like characteristic.
yeah, he's just a big brawler.
Yeah, because Darkseid is actually intelligent and
Right, right.
godlike, but I would hope that we get some interesting villains here. I would hope that the gameplay would be good and um maybe a decent cast. I don't know if we're gonna get any like major cameos. I wouldn't really want cameos of like the Hulk and someone else because then it'd just be like, okay, it's just Avengers like
Yeah. I
because
was
even
gonna
like
s Yeah, oh no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
the Batman games, you don't get cameos from anyone outside of Batman. Like
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I was gonna say like with Spider-Man, because that's the most immediate, like, popular Marvel character I can think of that got a really good game. Just not, Guardians was amazing, but they are not on the level of popularity of Spider-Man. There weren't like there weren't cameos with Spider-Man's kind of tricky because it's like such a big universe for him in the first place. But they did utilize like pretty much all of his major villains except for Green Goblin and Venom, and I guess Craven if you want to throw him in there. But we got like the Sinister Six. Um, I'm curious, like, what do you think? Because like I remember kind of liking this when I played the Avengers demo. I thought Iron Man's combat was actually pretty decent. Because I do think while the flight aspect is important, I feel like his combat is kind of tricky because he shoots laser beams. So you like it, you can only make that so interesting. So I am curious to see, I guess, sort of like what they did in Spider-Man and what they did in Guardians as well, where like the characters had all these different abilities that you didn't learn about until like you played through more of the game. So I wonder what they're gonna do in terms of the combat for Iron Man, because if you are just playing as Iron Man, it could maybe get a little repetitive, just like shooting laser beams at everybody.
Yeah, because when my brother played Guardians, he didn't like Star-Lord's hand-to-hand combat, and he just
Right.
felt the shooting got too repetitive very quickly. And I
I
was
could
like,
see
yeah, I
that.
agree. And I think with Iron Man, we should be able to see like, you can throw some punches or do his like from the first movie when he like jumps up and punches, what's his name, the Mongol, and he was like, my
Yeah.
turn or whatever. I do want to see a couple of special moves as well. You gotta have the Unibeam
Yes.
and you gotta have the tank missile.
Yeah. Do
You
you
gotta,
it's funny. Well, it depends on the story. It does depends on the story because it's interesting that you mentioned the Hulk because the Hulk has a very complicated place in the MCU, but one of the most famous Iron Man suits is the
the
Hulkbuster armor.
Hulkbuster.
So if there was any character that would potentially be in the game, I mean, how I guess in theory you could put that just in as like a, DLC suit or, just like an alternate costume, but it's not it's different than just an alternate costume. Like it's a different scale, like it's massive, it's has different
Right.
abilities. So I know that, fans are probably going to want to see the Hulkbuster armor in like big shiny next gen graphics, like looking amazing, doing all this crazy stuff, but I'm curious about the story because how there's such specific circumstances for how you can even make that make sense.
So here's the funny thing. If you remember when Iron Man 1 released and when The Incredible Hulk came out, they each had their own games. If you had a
Yes.
save file from Iron Man, you could play as the Hulkbuster and the Hulk. And it was just a skin, but it was still pretty cool to see.
Oh, that is
Um,
pretty cool.
and it'll be cool to get the Hulkbuster and maybe you can use it for different things. Um, but I will say we spoke about this earlier in the chat about other superheroes. And we had that whole discussion about DC, which we can save that portion of it for another video about these DC characters not getting video games. But
Yeah.
after Spider-Man released and how great it was, and I was hoping Insomniac was going to make more Spider-Man games or more Marvel games. I was like, this would be a great city to reuse to make an Incredible Hulk game or maybe an Iron Man game.
Yeah.
So I am happy to see. I'm actually working on a separate video for my channel about superhero games and if we need more superhero games and less superhero movies. And I would love to see the Incredible Hulk get a good game because the last one was Ultimate Destruction. But I want to see a good Hulk game. I want to see what they're gonna do with Wolverine. Um, and I wish DC did get a couple more games as well, but Marvel seems to have the better way of doing it because Marvel had video games for years. All the old Spider-Man games, there was a couple of Punisher games. Ghost Rider had a game. Daredevil, I think, had a game. So it's amazing to see that all these different companies can make Marvel games.
Hmm.
And as long as it's done right, with Guardians of the Galaxy being done right, Spider-Man was done right. There's no doubt Wolverine's going to be great. This Iron Man game could potentially be pretty cool.
A lot of potential.
And I
Yeah.
I want to see some more of these superhero games if they're done correctly. Of course, that also means we're not going to get a much better, we're most likely going to get a better Avengers game with these different, like, if Insomniac just made all the different Marvel superhero games, then they would do one full like Avengers game. But I don't think I
Yeah.
would want that either. I just think
I mean, part of me also feels like as much as I love Insomniac and like what they do with Spider-Man and Wolverine's probably going to be awesome. When we got Guardians of the Galaxy, it was a nice reminder that like, hey, other companies also have really good ideas and can make great superhero games as well. So I think what's kind of exciting is that it does seem like the teams in charge of these games a lot, and like not to go too much into DC, but like Rocksteady is back working on a game. Warner Bros. Montreal, which made a good Batman game, but just had a lot of bugs in it. They're back working on a game. You've got, the Guardians of the Galaxy guy is now heading up the Iron Man game. You've got Insomniac doing Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. Like the studios in charge now seem like they're they're like these publishers are now putting the projects in the hands of devs that are taking it seriously.
Yeah.
And it's not just like, oh shit, we have an Avengers movie. Can you like make a game really quickly so we can sell it for $40 and some like grandma will buy it for her kid for Christmas? Like those are the like superhero games we used to get. Of like, oh, there's a Thor movie. All right, we got to make a game. Like it does seem like we're at least getting higher quality, but it's also nice that it's not just one company. Like when Rocksteady was doing Batman, or yeah, Rocksteady. Uh, it was like, well, this is great, but they clearly seem like the only company capable of doing a good Batman game. And, we'll see how Gotham Knights turns out, but like that could be a lot of potential to be like, hey, it's not just Rocksteady. Like you can give this IP to other companies and they can also do a great job. So it's going to be kind of cool that like now it's, these heroes are being spread between different talented developers. It's pretty exciting.
Who's making the Captain America Black Panther game?
Oh, I'd have to look that up. You know what's funny? I didn't know that that was different than this. There's a separate Black Panther game. Like I thought that was the game, and they were like, "Oh, it's also featuring Captain America now." But it's actually a separate game with Black Panther and Captain America,
My
which
only fear
is
about that game in particular was in the teaser we saw, there was four characters. I hope it's not one of those four-player beat 'em up type of things. Um, or
I
like
was
a
gonna
four.
say, it is interesting that Marvel Avengers for now seems like a one-off in terms of multiplayer superhero games because the other ones we've gotten are Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, Wolverine, Guardians, and Iron Man, all of which are single player stories. So it does seem like Marvel Avengers maybe had to be the sacrificial lamb of like, okay, we're not doing that again. Like, but I mean, I guess we'll kind of see some of that with Gotham Knights. Like, hopefully they learned from Marvel Avengers and they don't. I mean, that's also a single player story. Like, it happens to have four playable characters that we know of, but it's a single player story. Like, there's no online. There's like, it's very contained. So we are at least seeing a shift away from that Marvel Avengers disaster.
Yeah. So I just hope that there's with this whole thing, it has to be done right. And I just hope that going forward we do see a I I don't want to be overwhelmed with superhero video games at the same time.
Right.
But I hope that the ones we do get going forward, because we still got Wonder Woman in development, which we could
Yes.
probably save it for a different, like a DC related video for their games. Suicide Squad,
I don't know what that game's about, bro. Supposed
and
to come out. It was
then
supposed to come out this year. And like I still don't know what it's about.
Brainiac brainwashing the Justice League, and they got to kill the League.
Right?
But other than that, like I would hope that we do get um just do it justice. That's all we can really say
Yeah.
is do it justice. And if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. There's other superhero games out there, even non-DC Marvel games. Like I've been playing Infamous games again. They're basically superhero games, and they kind of hold up.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for the future of superhero games. I think the movies at this point, it's too many MCU movies, and DC is kind of, I'm gonna see how
It's
Black
just a
Adam
lot of
is, but
superhero movies in general, bro.
so I would love to see,
Yeah.
because you watch these movies and you're like, oh my God, it's so cool that this happened, but I wish I could play a game and do it. Like,
Yeah.
So
And
I don't
that's like
know.
how Spider-Man PS4 like sort of accidentally became one of the best Spider-Man movies ever, and it was
Yeah.
a video game. It just goes to show you how great single player story driven video games can be if you give the developers time and resources and let them do what they want to do. Um,
Exactly.
there were a couple more things I just wanted to touch on real briefly because we did chat about this a little bit earlier today, off the podcast. But do you think there's any possibility that the success of an Iron Man game, which to my knowledge would be the first technically flying video game character to get a single player, story game in this new era, do you think that would impact the potential of seeing a Superman game? Like, do you think if that game is successful and everybody's like, "Oh my God, it was so cool. Like I felt like I was Iron Man, like speeding through the sky, like flying." And do you think that will start a movement of like, can you do this but with Superman?
I would say definitely. Because I think it's like whoever's gonna do it, which probably be Warner Brothers or someone like that, they
Right.
probably want to do like we don't want to be the guys who do it wrong and then get blamed for it. We want to see someone else take a stab at the idea,
Yeah.
and then we can then put our creation to work type of thing. So I think it could happen. I also, as I mentioned before in the chat with you guys, I wanted to see some more other heroes, but that's, like I said, another discussion. But I think it could happen. And I think after Gotham Knights, if we're going to get any more superhero games from DC, Batman needs to take a long break because we've gotten 4 Batman games already. And this is, and even more than that, because there's a lot of old Batman games too. But
The most popular
um,
superhero in the world. I mean, come on.
like I need a
I
Batman
understand that
break.
though. Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I wonder if like the combination of an Iron Man game, let's just say 4 to 5 years away, and a Wonder Woman game, another few years away. If those two forces combine to like the next up has to be Superman because now you've got the flying stuff down and you've got a a character with actual superpowers and Wonder Woman, so it's not just Batman using gadgets. Like, so now you've done that and
Right.
mesh them into a flying character with superpowers. The last thing I wanted to ask you was with Iron Man, now that box is checked, assuming that this everything goes well with this game and it comes out and all that and it's good. Uh, who's next for you? If you could pick, Marvel, DC, up to you. Uh, who's the next superhero? If everything broke right and they were gonna, it was gonna be Insomniac or the Guardians of the Galaxy team or this new team, whatever. What superhero would you like to see get a game next?
I'm gonna give you a Marvel one and a DC one.
Okay.
Marvel, it has to be the Hulk, like that. Um, I want to see the Hulk come back as a game because we are getting Black Panther, we're getting the Spider-Man, another Wolverine, we're getting Iron Man. If not Hulk, something with Thor. I actually do like Thor, but I don't think Thor. I think Thor would be mostly a linear travel the realms kind of thing. Plus, we got God of War coming out, so that's gonna be my Thor fill. Um, I would say Incredible Hulk for Marvel, and for DC, it's got to be the Flash for me. I don't know any other DC
Mm,
characters that I'm gonna find interesting. Like Green Lantern, not so much. Um, Aquaman, come on. It's got to be, with the exception of Superman, because we're gonna, we already got that Superman thing
right,
out the
right,
way.
right.
It's got to be the Flash. I would love to see the Flash get something cool because there was a game that was in development and it got canceled. Um,
Yes, I recall.
and then with the Marvel side, if not the Hulk, if they wanted to do something that's not open world, and Wolverine is not open world, then want to do something similar to that. The Punisher might be cool. Like I know the last one they made on PS2 was a good game, I think. I never
Like
played it, but
honestly, I could actually see Punisher Daredevil getting like a co-op type game because
yeah, I
they
can see
are they
that.
are sort of tying them together in the MCU now.
Yeah. So I could definitely see that. That would be pretty cool. Even when they did the Daredevil show and they just interaction they had with each other in that early episode, I'm just like, this is fucking awesome. Like,
Yeah, dude, I mean, it's two characters with totally different sets of morality, and one of them's an actual fucking lawyer.
yeah.
My answers are probably kind of boring. Well, at least the first one, because I desperately want the Hulk to get more stuff to do just in general. And since he's not allowed to have his own movies, I think I don't know what the game like legality is, but I would love to see just remake Ultimate Destruction. You don't even have to do a new just remake that one. Like, do you know
Yeah.
how the internet would break if they announced an Ultimate Destruction remake? Like,
Like,
same story, all that same stuff, just updated graphics. The people's minds would melt.
yeah.
So I'm selfishly would love to see another Hulk. I would have said Black Panther, but that's already happening, so that's very cool. And my second after that probably would have been Captain America, which is also already happening. But we need justice for the Hulk because he is getting absolutely hosed in the MCU right now.
Yeah.
DC, I know this will never happen, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Static Shock. Static Shock has always been one of my
Yeah.
favorite superheroes ever since like the OG TV show, and then he was in Young Justice. Not my favorite version of him, but he was also in Justice League for a few episodes. I don't think he has the name recognition anymore to sell a game. Um, outside of like a collection of people from the 90s who watched the show, because Static Shock has literally not been on like a national state. Like he wasn't in the Justice League movie,
Right.
like doesn't have that much exposure anymore. But I just think it would be really cool, and like, you know, we don't really have a lot of black superheroes. So especially in DC, like it'd be kind of cool to see Static Shock. And yeah, I mean, I guess that also like there would have to be flying mechanic because he does fly. But he had so many cool abilities um that like I always thought that show took a really boring superpower and turned it into like he was able to combat so many different situations. And I was like, damn, they got real creative with these abilities because like
Right.
I'm not a scientist. I don't know if electricity should be working in this exact way. But it was pretty cool to see some of his like abilities, and the like I think at some point technically he became like the most powerful member of the Justice League when they went to the future.
Plus,
Uh,
we'll see some cool characters like Rubber Band Man would be really cool to see.
yeah, yeah. He had a great arc in that show.
Yeah, he did.
We would also get to see Gear. Oh man, dude, there was an episode of that show where like a kid brought a gun to school or something. Man,
Yeah,
that
and
shit was
Gear gets shot in the leg or
crazy.
something like that.
Yeah, bro, that show was ahead of its time, dude. Yeah,
It
you know what?
was.
Everybody listening, go watch Static Shock. A bunch of the episodes are on YouTube. Ahead of its time. But I'd love to see a Static Shock game. It's never gonna happen. I don't even think the movie's gonna happen anymore. Because Warner Bros. Is like blowing everything up right now. But that would be awesome. Yeah, Hulk Static Shock. We got a lot of exciting superhero games coming, and hopefully Iron Man lives up to the hype, at least for us, because we are looking forward to it. EA, if you're listening, back the fuck off. Give this team a bunch of money, write them a blank check because Guardians was fucking awesome. Give them a blank check and just leave. Leave, and they will tell you when it's done. And then we'll all get a kick ass Iron Man game. Thank you for tuning in, listening, watching, Anchor, YouTube. We appreciate all of you. And as always, thank you for subscribing. The channel is growing, and that's really exciting to see. And we will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out.